Hello everyone, this is Mono. I've been wanting to make a video like this for a while, but life got crazy and it ended up on the back burner. However, when I ordered some new piercing jewelry recently, I was suddenly like, wait a minute, I got my snake bites like a year ago, they're fully healed now. I should make a video since I can now confidently say I've had the full experience of my first piercings. Obvious content warning before we get into this, I will be openly talking about everything related to getting piercings. Needles, swelling, the healing process, body fluids, the risks associated with piercings. All of that and more is gonna be fair game in this video. If you can't handle those subjects, feel free to watch something else, or even go out and touch some grass if you're feeling adventurous. It's not mean, it's healthy. Plus, this video is also some easy filler content since I'm still in the process of working on my Sonic X Shadow Generations review, along with some different stuff for a project, and I still haven't drawn the thumbnail for another video I need to post. Gee, aren't I just going places? But I won't keep stalling in the intro, let's just get into it. So no, I did not actually get bitten by a snake. In case you're unfamiliar, Snakebites is the term used for the set of 2 piercings you can get on both sides of your bottom lip. Usually you see people with rings in them, but you can also use labrets, which have a stud on the end. Those are usually balls or spikes, but they can be nearly anything. I've even seen like spider webs and stuff. I'm currently using labrets myself, the reason which I'll be elaborating on later. But anyway, I've wanted snake bites since I was around 16 or 17. I finally got them pierced at 19, and I'm 20 now. To tell you the truth, I would have gotten them much sooner, being promised piercings for multiple holidays in a row, except it just never happened. Womp womp. That's fine, I mean that's one way to get out of giving your relatives gifts. I'm kidding. Kind of. Okay. Maybe it was a blessing in disguise though, because it did give me a lot of time to be 100% sure this was what I wanted, as I was extra hyperfixated on having an alternative style at the time. I've chilled out a little bit since then, / my mental health got worse and I can't always make myself wear things I can't handle that day. But one of my consistent goals for my appearance is to be able to be read as alternative without needing to put on a bunch of makeup or constantly touching up my hair. I feel like it kind of goes against the point if I'm constantly trying to cater to one particular beauty standard, even if it's not the average beauty standard. Yeah. Piercings, an easy to wear alternative wardrobe, and tattoos are a huge part of accomplishing that for me. But anyway, I got tired of waiting, so I took my piercing journey into my own hands. Once I left my home state at 18, I started working at an arts and crafts store. It was minimum wage, I wasn't trained very well, and the old people were major assholes as usual, but I was surrounded by something I loved and a lot of cool coworkers who got me through it. I don't think I've worked with nearly as many creative and interesting people all at once since then. Working there definitely wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, but it was a great excuse to stockpile sketchbooks and other art supplies, which I still haven't used up even while giving some of it away months later, so I'd call that a victory. One day, I was working the cash register. Yeah, I hated working register, but management only scheduled me up there for some reason. It was just like any other day, boring and repetitive, dealing with Karens and other middle-aged women robbing the store blind as usual, when this one person shows up to my register. I'm gonna call them Jade, and they do go by she, they in real life. I forget how exactly it got brought up, but we briefly talked as I scanned their stuff, and she mentioned that they're an apprentice piercer. Now, I'd already decided one of the first things I'd do in my new state was go ahead and get snake bites. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. I've been wanting snake bites forever. And they're like, well, you're in luck. We do those at my studio. So Jade hands me her business card, and once the stuff's paid for, she leaves. I mean, what kind of coincidence is that? Sweet. So once my paycheck hit and I had a little bit of time off, I got scheduled with Jade and headed into the studio with a safe person. If possible, I always recommend bringing someone with you for a tattoo or piercing just in case. Not that your piercer or tattoo artist is going to sacrifice you to Satan or anything like that, but some people are prone to or already have health issues that can be triggered unexpectedly in the chair. These can be physical issues like passing out or more mental things like anxiety. But even if these issues don't bother you, it's always good to have emotional support regardless. However, just know that many studios do have limits. Often, you can't bring more than one person with you, and some studios may frown upon bringing anyone at all. Also, make sure to respect what your safe person needs too. My safe person was not fond of the idea of watching me get stabbed with needles, which was perfectly okay. A lot of people get squeamish and I didn't need my hand held. Instead of coming to the back area, they stayed in the lobby and helped me get home afterwards. That way, they could be comfortable, but they were also there for me in every way I needed it. So, anywho, after showing my ID and listening to some 2000s and 2010s emo bangers, Jade takes me to the back where their teacher is supervising the process. After some fiddling around with a marker, Jade draws on dots for where I'll be pierced and has me look in the mirror to check it out. And I'm gonna be honest, I nearly backed out of doing it when I saw the initial placement. Not that the apprentice did anything wrong, it was a standard placement. But my immediate thought was, oh no, these are not going to look the way I thought they would. My lips were not made for this. I'd actually bought some fake rings a few weeks prior to see how the piercing could look on me, but suddenly seeing the markings in the mirror had me thinking I was delusional. But then, Jade's teacher, who I will be calling Emerald to stick with my gem theme today, steps in. First, she asks what my pronouns are. I say, oh, just she, her. But for some reason, okay, this is a little bit of a nitpick, she kinda starts talking to Jade like I'm not even there, and exclusively uses they them for me the whole time, like to a weird extent. There's a difference between switching she and they, and exclusively using they. It was more like the second. And like, look, it didn't really bother me, you know, I don't really get upset if people use different pronouns than what I prefer. But why would you ask for someone's pronouns if you're not going to use them? Like, okay. God forbid I'd actually been trans or had a legitimate reason to not want they them pronouns used for me. Like, it's just a weird thing I noticed. It didn't really affect me, but I could see how that would affect other people. So, yeah. Just a little thing. Anywho, Emerald tells me, hey, these can be pierced like this if that's what you want, but I think the typical placement will make your lips look a bit long. And I'm not gonna lie, she said the quiet part out loud. I 100% agreed. Emerald then suggests to Jade, what if we bring them a bit closer on the inside and angle the piercings outwards? So the dots are erased, and Jade draws them on again. And when I looked in the mirror this time, they were perfect. It was just like looking into the mirror when I'd put the fake rings on. The placement was exactly where I'd instinctively put them before. Hey, don't mess with my model, stop it. Sorry, my cat's trying to change my expression right now. So, a lot more enthusiastic now, I chose to proceed with the process. Under Emerald's watchful eye, Jade pierces one side, puts the jewelry in, and then does the other. It's difficult to compare the pain level compared to other piercings since I've never had another, but overall I'd give it a 2 out of 10 for the initial needle wound. It hurt way less than I ever expected. If anything, the clamp and Jade tugging on my lip while putting the jewelry in was a lot more painful, with that being closer to a 4 out of 10. Overall though, definitely less painful than getting a flu shot, which for me I'd say is like a 6.5. It's pretty bad. Once everything was finished up, I was given aftercare instructions. I'd wash it daily with a wound wash saline solution eat softer foods, use alcohol-free mouthwash after eating, and otherwise just leave it the hell alone and let it heal. I was also told I should return in 3 months to size down my jewelry, as piercers will typically give you longer jewelry than you need during the initial appointment to accommodate for swelling from a fresh piercing. The reason you size down oral piercings ASAP is because there's a risk of longer bars damaging your teeth and gums. But you do have to balance that risk with keeping a fresh wound unbothered and uninfected. However, everyone's bodies are different, and it's possible for some people to switch sooner, while others may have to wait longer. Do you have to groom yourself in my lap? After paying, and for any first-timers considering piercings, bring cash. Bring a good chunk of it. Like at least a couple of 20s, no joke. If you're ever unsure about how much you need to bring, ask your piercer before you go. A lot of studios only take cash, and taking digital methods like Zelle, Venmo, or PayPal is a much newer practice that not every studio is going to be up to date with yet. So we left and eventually got home. My pain tolerance is pretty good. I can take a pretty good battering, so I think my body took some time to process the pain. I only started to feel a bit of it in the car as my lip began to swell up. Once I got home, I took some ibuprofen since anything with acetaminophen sucks and doesn't work, and then went to bed, happy with my life decisions. Now for the healing process. I think I noticed the next day that one of the piercings was angled ever so slightly differently from the other one, which did bump me out a little bit because any asymmetry on my face is pretty noticeable. I even used to be insecure about this small birthmark I have because it makes my face asymmetrical. But then I realized it's kind of unique, which is cool. It's kind of like having a scar. But then I remembered to back away from the mirror, and I realized I was definitely overanalyzing, and you really couldn't tell unless you looked for it. But I also knew I had very swollen fresh piercings, and maybe I just needed to give it more time before they'd look more even. Spoiler, yeah, the rational part of my brain was right. They look a lot better nowadays, especially after downsizing. Anyway, my left piercing healed great, with 0 issues. The right one, however... Okay, so to be fair, nobody could have known to warn me about this. Not me, not my piercer, and not their teacher. So just a word of advice if any of my viewers are considering getting lip piercings. If you wear retainers, braces, or any other dental appliances, you might want to consult with your doctor first, or just be very aware that they may interfere with your piercing's healing. I had braces as a kid, so I have to wear retainers at night, and my retainers made my healing process so much more complicated and risky, considering retainers also harbor bacteria. Since the healing labrets are long, they're able to touch your teeth, so it wasn't uncommon for me to accidentally and very painfully trap the backs of my labrets inside of my retainers when trying to go to sleep for the night, which would immediately yank on them as hard as possible. Ouch. Thankfully, I learned a long time ago that if you get any part of you stuck somewhere, the most useless thing you can do is freak out. So I'd breathe, yank the retainer piece back off, and very tenderly try to put it back again without repeating the same mistake. But that right side piercing just continued to bug me for much longer than it should have, and I really did assume it was normal. I knew it wasn't infected, and it didn't really hurt unless I touched it, so I just kept going to sleep with these retainers in, thinking maybe it would heal within another month or two. And then I suddenly lost my retainers. Both of them. At once. And I definitely didn't have the money to go get them replaced. Plus, I've only ever had extremely negative experiences with dentists and orthodontists, so it's very hard to make myself go back. So I sucked it up and had to get used to sleeping without them once more. I can't say I was that disappointed though. I got braces at an age where I really wasn't ready to take on the responsibility of caring for them. Being told I had to do it no matter how I felt because I'd be passed over by jobs or whatever otherwise. And nobody told me retainers were a permanent commitment until I got stuck with them. Yeah, I'm still salty. But a few weeks went by, and I took another look at my right piercing in the mirror one day. And it was fully healed. I mean, are you kidding me? Like, I guess it makes so much more sense in hindsight that it was the retainer the whole time. But come on, nobody said anything about that. Well, thanks to the whole retainer debacle, I'd say both snakebites didn't fully heal until about maybe 4 to 5 months ago. And even to this day, it's definitely more sensitive than the other piercing. It swells up a lot more easily, and although I've definitely seen far more unfortunate scarring, I was a little bit bummed at how the scar looked on the inside. I'm just grateful you can't really see it on the outside though. And again, ever since I got shorter labrets, it's a lot harder to tell. But let's rewind a bit. Bruh, the cat just paused my recording. Stop that. You need to leave that alone. But let's rewind a bit. Jade had told me to reach out if I had any questions about the piercings afterwards, or if they were giving me any trouble. Well, I figured if they weren't infected, I was fine. But I did eventually reach out to Jade to ask if they had any black jewelry at the studio, since I'd said during my initial appointment that I wanted to switch to black spiky rings once my piercing had healed enough. Jade took a few days to reply, but when she did, they were basically like, "Nah, we don't have anything like that, but I'll let you know if we get something. Or you can look online." So I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's alright, thanks anyway." I figured, okay, I'll go ahead and see if I can find what I want online. After a ton of research into reputable jewelry websites, I found this one website that did have what I wanted called Body Art Forms. Not sponsored by the way, but I do currently get my piercing jewelry from there. I showed Jade the listing, and I'm like, hey, if I order these, can I pay you guys to help me switch them out? I asked since I'd been told before that they would do a jewelry switch, either for free if I bought my new jewelry with them, or just for $5 if I brought them jewelry to put in. For whatever reason though, Jade also said cleaning the new jewelry could take up to 2 hours. I'm not really sure why it should take that long. I've cleaned new jewelry here at home myself multiple times now, and it takes maybe 10 to 20 minutes maximum. If there's any professional piercers watching, maybe you can give some insight as to why that should take so long. I'm not trying to be rude, I just genuinely don't understand the difference. Like, if there's something y'all do more that makes the cleaning better, I don't know. But I thought it would be the smart option to get help since my piercings were a lot newer back then and I still wasn't sure what I was doing. But when I messaged them back this time, Jade doesn't respond for nearly a month. I mean, I really don't try to bother people. I keep my messages with artists and piercers very direct and to the point, and I only ever message them about business. But with this big of a gap between messages that was only growing larger each time I tried to contact them, to the point where I couldn't get a basic yes or no for weeks on end, I figured it was time to take the hint and start looking for a new shop. But eventually, Jade does get back to me, and all I see is Jade condescendingly being like, "No, don't buy from them. They're not reputable. And don't buy from Hot Topic either. They're not reputable. They'll get your piercings infected and blah blah blah. You should buy jewelry from Etsy or us. Then we can talk." So I'm thinking like, dude, what is this energy all of a sudden? I wasn't going to buy from Hot Topic in the first place. I'm not stupid. And look, I'm not a professional piercer, but I've glanced at Etsy for jewelry out of curiosity before, and spoiler alert, they have let their platform completely get overtaken by dropshippers and scammers. I saw so many copies of the exact same pieces being sold on Alibaba, Wish, Temu, Shein, whatever. It was all so obviously made of cheap metal that 100% would have led to me getting some kind of infection or reaction. Of course, I'm like, What the hell? This person ghosted me and now they're telling me the site I did a bunch of research to find sucks, but won't explain why, won't recommend alternatives, and now they want me to buy shitty jewelry that probably has lead and who knows what other junk in it? Really? So, I say screw it. I'm gonna find the right jewelry on my own. I'll change it out myself. And that leads to even more fun little discoveries along the way. First up, I got pierced with a 16 gauge needle, and my healing bars were half an inch long to accommodate for swelling. And I was told, to my face, that they were internally threaded. But no. Once I finally realized righty-tighty lefty-loosey works in reverse when it's on your own face, I found out my jewelry was in fact externally threaded. Which, it really doesn't make that much of a difference for me. I'm not mad, but considering how much communication had already broken down, I was kind of just annoyed at this point. I definitely felt like this was a bit unprofessional. I specifically told Jade I wanted to switch to hoops once my healing allowed for it. And I was told that the length I would need for hoops was 5/16 of an inch. Okay, remember how I said I'd elaborate later on why I'm currently using labrets when I wanted hoops? So, I went and ordered that exact size, right? And they weren't even close to fitting. Those rings were tiny. I think maybe they were supposed to go into a septum instead? I'm not sure, but I couldn't even get them through the other side of the hole in my face. They were way too sharp of a curve for my piercing. And by the way, you can't just return body jewelry. If you open it, you gotta keep it. No take-backsies. So there went $30 down the drain because I was misinformed by my piercer again. Someone did tell me later that you need to measure hoops differently, but wouldn't that have made sense for Jade to bring up at the appointment? Where, I don't know, I literally told them what I planned to do? Or, I don't know, when I was trying to have basic communication about ordering jewelry? Like, I'm not mad Jade took a while to reply, at least at first. I'm sure they had things to attend to, and I know what it's like to struggle with talking to people even to the point where you can't put together basic texts anymore. What I'm not happy about is the continuous way they ghosted me as a client she'd consensually put 2 new holes into, who was also trying to give her more business. I'm extremely lucky that I didn't have any serious complications with my piercings, because I don't think I would have gotten help from Jade before I would have been forced to see a different piercer, take them out, or go to an urgent care. I really do understand mental health struggles. If that was the issue, I don't know. But Jade never communicated anything like that. And this is just my opinion, but regardless of your mental health, if you're working in a setting where your client's health is in your hands, you should feel obligated to at least read a message from a client you recently pierced to make sure they aren't actively dying. I mean, Jade wasn't even leaving me on red. This was straight up letting the message sit there unopened for weeks. So, a few more weeks go by. I temporarily decided to stick with the jewelry I was pierced with because it was comfortable. Eventually, I decide, okay, I'll order 5/16 labrets since that's probably what Jade meant when she told me that size. Oh, also, another thing? So, something I also didn't know was that black jewelry must be painted or plated onto the metal, because most body-safe materials can't just be turned black like that. There is a process called anodization that can help color a lot of jewelry, but that isn't possible for every color or material. Additionally, since there's a risk of chipping, it's not smart to use black jewelry in healing piercings, because those chips can get stuck in your piercing channel and cause infections. It turns out some shops just won't carry that type of jewelry specifically due to those risks. And look, I don't know if that's why Jade's shop didn't have any, but I was getting tired of not knowing what was right or wrong. The fact I'd gotten more actual information from Reddit than I can get out of people who were supposed to be at least somewhat educated in their field was kind of irritating. By this point, I had been wearing my initial piercing jewelry for about 1 year. So, I got some new PVD plated black labrets, not wanting to spend as much money as before, and my shipment gets delayed. Yay. Want to know what I almost managed to do while I waited? Chip a tooth. Yeah, so I went a whole year with incorrectly sized jewelry and nearly did the one thing everyone gets scared of when I was literally right about to have the jewelry that would fit me. So thankfully I did not chip the tooth, but I did come dangerously close. I think I was eating a new chicken Big Mac. Yeah, my life writes itself. For whatever reason, I accidentally snapped down really hard onto my long-ass labret bars while biting into this double patty chicken Big Mac. I had been eating very carefully ever since I got these piercings, but I guess I just wasn't on that day. As soon as the new jewelry arrived, I washed and wiped it down with alcohol, let it dry, and quickly got to work on replacing my old bars. And as of writing this script, I have had my new jewelry in for about a week. I'm getting used to it. They look nice, I like them, but I'm definitely getting larger spikes when I have a chance. I might even size up to a 3/8 length, just because these feel a little bit snug, and my lower lip is pretty juicy. You know, it's definitely a different feeling having bars that actually fit in my mouth now. I never realized it before, but I noticed after changing them out that my voice feels a bit more clear. Like, back to the way it was before I got the piercings. I could be completely wrong about this though. Maybe I'm tripping, and I'm not even sure if that change would come through in the audio of this video. It's just something I think I observed. I noticed I was having some speech issues a few months back, and I legitimately thought it could just be those funny little issues in my brain. No, I really should have realized sooner that it was more likely related to the giant fucking oversized bars in my mouth. Yeah, the ones I know damn well I left in for way too long. But again, nobody tells you these things up front. The only risk I knew of related to keeping the jewelry in was the dental issues, not a free speech impediment. Due to downsizing, I also learned about the phenomenon called nesting. Apparently, some well-fitted mouth labrets may decide to just disappear. No, not really, but it can kind of look like that. Oral piercings have the unique capability of making themselves comfy in their spots on the inside of your lip, meaning they sink a little bit lower into the skin, creating their own pocket to sit in. This may sound scary when I describe it, but the way you can tell your body isn't just eating your piercing alive is that nesting is completely painless. The backings of nested piercings can easily pop right back into reach, so you can easily change out your jewelry. Nesting is actually considered desirable, as it also helps protect your teeth and gums from damage. If you're considering getting snake bites and are avoiding it due to the risk of damage, I think this information could be very important. You are not guaranteed to experience nesting immediately. It could take a few days, a few weeks, even a few months, and it usually won't happen if you use rings or even straight jewelry that's too long. I know my healing jewelry never nested because it was just too big. This usually only happens with jewelry that is, again, well-fitted. But I think this information could help some people realize that the risk isn't as bad as you may think. Your body is super smart and will help protect you. Nesting also helps hide the backs of your piercings, if that bothers you. Sometimes you can't even see the back of the jewelry at all once nesting occurs. Just make sure to keep in mind that nesting is supposed to happen to fully healed piercings. I have never experienced embedding, thankfully, but I know that's not the same as nesting. If your piercing is embedding, that means your jewelry is too small to accommodate the swelling you'll experience due to a fresh piercing. So, if it's painful, If it's oozing, get with your piercer ASAP or even take it out and go to a different one if you don't trust them. Embedding is not normal. It's not the same as nesting, and jewelry that's acting like that cannot stay in your body. It's a risk to your health. So yeah, there's always going to be risks associated with getting pierced, but please note that most piercings will be fine so long as you keep them dry, clean, and follow your aftercare instructions. But if they do give you trouble, it's not always your fault either. Everyone's body is different, and you can't control things like a metal allergy or, hopefully you never experienced this, but I have heard stories about errors being made by piercers as well. When it comes to snake bites, thankfully they're a very universal piercing that, in my opinion, looks good on just about everyone. The risks are fairly minimal when they're taken care of, but in rare cases you may not have the anatomy for them. It doesn't have anything to do with lip size, but more so the veins in your lips. Some people have a lot of them. And you do not want to have a piercing that hits a vein. That's pretty rare though, and if you do find out you don't have the right anatomy, you can always try to discuss alternatives with your piercer, and hopefully you can find something that is safe to get pierced. But I think this video is starting to get pretty long, and less about my own experiences. For the final ratings, I'll say this. Initial pain. As stated before, 2 out of 10. Practically painless to get the holes, but a bit more painful when my piercer had to finagle with inserting the jewelry. Aftercare pain. I'd say it's a 3 out of 10 unless the jewelry gets yanked, then it spikes to a 6 out of 10, but thankfully they're only sore for about a day before they're fine. The rest of it is just discomfort, and if you're better about getting your jewelry downsized than I was, you will likely experience far less of that than I did. Talking to a person pain. I'm half joking with this one, but I did want to bring up that unfortunately my experience was not the best in terms of being able to communicate with my piercer, and I will definitely go elsewhere when I finally have the cash to get angel bites or regular lobes. 7 out of 10. I understand they are an apprentice, so I'm giving some leeway. I'm just really hoping she works on that for future clients. Again, I was very, very lucky to not have any complications. I also want to clarify before I end the video, I am not discouraging anyone from seeing an apprentice piercer. Just because my experience wasn't the greatest doesn't mean there aren't a lot of good apprentices out there. Please see apprentices. They need the experience. Just like cosmetology schools, apprentices are overseen by their teachers, who will generally step in like Emerald did if they think something might go wrong or a client will be unsatisfied with their result. Everyone has to start somewhere, although it is understandable and I'm not shaming anyone if they choose to go see a well-established professional. However, apprentices are a little bit cheaper to go see, and you will get the studio's same level of care when you go. There will always be a risk, but if you take it, there are benefits for both you and the apprentice. I just wanted to put that out there, as I realized my description of my experience may come off as me saying you shouldn't see apprentices. A friendly reminder that this is just a storytime YouTube video. The actions of one person do not speak for an entire group, and technically I can't prove any of this even happened. Besides, the holes in my face. Okay, ending the video for real now. Bye-bye.